My father leaned across the row just as the applause swelled for my niece, and his mouth barely moved when he said, "Talent shows up early in life, Erin. You can't manufacture it." My daughter Sophie was clapping with both hands in her lap because she didn't want to look jealous, and I felt her fingers stiffen against mine. My mother gave that soft little laugh she used when cruelty was dressed up as wisdom, while my sister Marissa kept her eyes on the stage, smiling like she had won something too. My name is Erin Caldwell. I'm 34 years old, and by the end of that award night, my family would learn that the child they kept calling naturally gifted had been standing on a floor I had quietly paid for. The auditorium at Westbridge Preparatory smelled like floor polish, carnations, and expensive perfume. Every family had been assigned seats with cream-colored cards tucked into brass holders. My parents were in the second row, of course, because Marissa had called ahead and made sure Chloe's grandparents would be visible in the pictures. Sophie and I were in the back left section, not because we were late, because my mother had texted me that afternoon, "Space is tight, honey, don't make it awkward." That was how my family handled me. They didn't shove me out of rooms. They simply placed me where I would be least noticeable, then acted confused when I stopped waving. Chloe Vale, my 12-year-old niece, was receiving the Headmaster's Merit Award. She looked beautiful in her navy dress, her hair curled in soft ribbons around her face. None of this was Chloe's fault. She was a child, a sweet one mostly, when no one was teaching her to look over other people's shoulders. But my sister had made the night into a coronation. Marissa wore winter white, though it was April, and kept turning around to see who was watching her watch Chloe. My father, Kenneth Caldwell, had already told 3 people in the lobby, "That one has the family brain." He said it with his hand on Chloe's shoulder while Sophie stood beside me holding a grocery store bouquet wrapped in plastic. Sophie had chosen the flowers herself, yellow daisies, Chloe's favorite. When Chloe's name was announced, Sophie clapped first, hard, proudly. She even whispered, "She deserves it, Mom." That was when my father decided my daughter needed to be reminded of her place. I didn't answer him right away. I looked at Sophie instead. Her face had gone still in the way children's faces do when they're trying to be older than they are. She kept clapping, but slower now. Her cheeks had turned pink, and she stared at the stage like blinking might make her cry. My mother leaned toward me and murmured, "Don't start tonight." I hadn't said a word. That was always the most impressive part. They could wound me, then accuse me of bleeding too loudly. On stage, Principal Elaine Whitford adjusted the microphone. She smiled down at Chloe, then looked out over the auditorium. "Before we continue," she said, "there is someone here tonight we need to recognize." Marissa straightened like she expected her name. My father lifted his chin. Then Principal Whitford looked directly toward the back left section. "At the family's request, this has remained private for several years," she said. "But Westbridge cannot let tonight pass without thanking Ms. Erin Caldwell for her extraordinary support of Chloe Vale's tuition." The room changed temperature. My sister's smile disappeared so fast it looked erased. For 3 seconds, no one clapped. Not because they weren't impressed, because every person in that polished auditorium had turned to look at my family and realized the story they'd been sold had missing pages. Then applause broke out in uneven waves. Sophie's hand was still locked in mine. "Mom," she whispered. I squeezed back once. "It's okay." It wasn't. Marissa turned around slowly. Her face was pale beneath her makeup. Her lips parted like she was waiting for someone to correct the principal. My father didn't move at all. Principal Whitford continued, gentle but clear. "When Chloe first enrolled here, Ms. Caldwell made a generous commitment to ensure her education would not be interrupted by financial strain. We are deeply grateful for her quiet dedication." Quiet dedication. That was one name for it. Another was 12 wire transfers a year from my small accounting business, MAID. While my parents called me practical instead of ambitious, while Marissa told people she and her husband made sacrifices for Westbridge, while my father praised Chloe's opportunities as proof that his side of the family produced winners, I had never paid for Chloe to be thanked. I paid because 4 years earlier, Marissa had called me from her laundry room at midnight, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Her husband, Alan, had lost a contract, their savings were gone, and Chloe had cried herself sick at the thought of leaving Westbridge. "Please," Marissa had said, "just until we get stable. And don't tell Dad. He'll never let me forget it." So I didn't. I signed the forms. I set up the payments. I swallowed my pride when Marissa arrived at Thanksgiving, bragging about Chloe's elite education, and my parents asked if Sophie was still at that crowded public school. Because Sophie was happy, because money was not love, because I believed adults should not punish children for their parents' vanity. But tonight, my father had aimed his little knife at my daughter, and apparently, someone at Westbridge had decided silence was no longer noble. Principal Whitford invited me to stand. I didn't. I could feel my mother's glare burning the side of my face. "Erin," she hissed. That single word carried every instruction she had ever given me. Smile, shrink, fix this, protect us. For once, I stayed seated. So Sophie stood. My heart stopped. She rose beside me, thin shoulders squared, yellow daisies resting against her blue cardigan. She didn't say anything. She only lifted her chin toward the stage and clapped. The auditorium followed her. This time, the applause was full. Chloe looked confused, then embarrassed. Then she looked at me. For a moment, she was just a child seeing the adults around her rearrange into strangers. Marissa pushed out of her seat and hurried down the aisle toward me before the next award could begin. "What did you do?" she whispered sharply. I looked up at her. "I sat here. You told them." "No." "Then why would she announce it?" "I don't know." My father finally turned around. His face was dark red. "You had no right," he said. I almost laughed. "No right to what, Dad? Pay the bills or let people know I did?" My father's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. "This is Chloe's night," he said. "Yes," I answered. "So maybe don't use it to insult Sophie." Marissa's eyes darted toward the rows around us. People were pretending not to listen, which meant they were listening with their whole bodies. Mom leaned over Dad's shoulder. "Erin, lower your voice." "My voice is already low." "That's not the point." "It never is." On stage, Chloe had been guided to the side with the other award recipients. She looked miserable. That pierced through my anger because I had never wanted her humiliated. I had wanted one evening where my daughter could sit beside me without being measured and found lacking. Principal Whitford began the next announcement, her tone carefully steady. Marissa bent close to me. "You need to fix this after the ceremony," she whispered. "Tell everyone there was a misunderstanding." I stared at her. "Was there?" Her mouth tightened. "You know what I mean." "I know exactly what you mean. You want the money to be real and my involvement to be invisible. That is not fair. Neither was Dad calling Sophie second-rate while she clapped for your daughter." Marissa glanced at Sophie, then away. Not guilty enough to apologize, just guilty enough to resent being seen. Sophie sank back into her seat, clutching the daisies. "Mom, can we go?" I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to walk out and leave them sitting in the mess they had made. But Chloe was still on stage. So I whispered, "After she comes down, okay?" Sophie nodded, though her eyes shone. For the next 20 minutes, I heard nothing. Awards were given. Parents applauded. Cameras flashed. My father sat rigidly in front of me, shoulders high. My mother kept wiping under her eyes as if she were the injured party. When the ceremony ended, families flooded the aisles. Chloe came toward us slowly, medal against her chest. Marissa reached for her, but Chloe stepped past her and stopped in front of me. "Did you really pay?" she asked. The question was small, but it cut the room, between us, open. I crouched a little so we were eye level. "I helped, sweetheart, because you loved your school." Her eyes filled. Mom said Grandpa did. Behind her, Marissa went white. I didn't look at my sister. Then your mom can explain that. Chloe swallowed. Thank you. Then she turned to Sophie. Are those for me? Sophie held out the daisies with both hands. Yeah, congratulations. Chloe hugged them like they were the only honest thing in the building. My father stepped in. Enough. We'll discuss this at home. I stood up. No, we won't. His eyebrows lifted. He wasn't used to hearing no from me in public, maybe not in private either. You don't get to summon me anymore, I said, and you don't get access to my daughter just to make her feel small. Mom gasped. After all we've done for you? I looked at her carefully. Name it. She froze. Because love, in my family, had always been claimed like a debt. But when asked for receipts, there were none. My mother's silence was louder than any answer she could have given. Dad recovered first. You're being theatrical. No, I said, I'm being accurate. Marissa pulled Chloe closer, as if I were contagious. This is unbelievable. You let a school administrator embarrass my child. I looked at Chloe. I'm sorry you were embarrassed. You didn't deserve that. Chloe nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Then I looked at Marissa. But you lied to her, not me. Alan appeared from the refreshment table, holding 2 plastic cups of punch, completely unaware he had walked into a family trial. What happened? Chloe turned to him. Did Aunt Erin pay for Westbridge? His face crumpled in a way that told me he had known and hated knowing. Chloe, he said softly, your aunt helped us. Grandpa didn't? Alan's eyes flicked to my father. No. Dad's face hardened. This is not a conversation for children. It became one, I said, when you use children as proof of adult worth. For the first time all night, Alan looked directly at me. Erin, I'm sorry. 2 words, simple, late. But they landed somewhere real. Marissa spun toward him. Don't. He set the punch cups on an empty chair. No, Riss. She deserves an apology. So does Sophie. Sophie pressed against my side. Alan crouched in front of her. I'm sorry we let people compare you to Chloe. That wasn't right. Sophie nodded once, polite but guarded. My father scoffed. Wonderful. Now everyone's performing. Principal Whitford approached before I could answer. Her silver glasses caught the auditorium lights. Ms. Caldwell, may I have a word? Marissa jumped in. Yes, actually, I'd like to speak with you about your completely inappropriate announcement. Principal Whitford's expression did not change. Mrs. Vale, the donor recognition language was included in tonight's program draft and approved by your household last month. Marissa went still. Alan closed his eyes. I stared at him. Alan? He exhaled. I approved it. I thought it was time. Marissa looked betrayed. You had no right. Alan gave a sad laugh. That's funny coming from us. Principal Whitford turned to me. I apologize if the timing caused distress. Mr. Vale told us the family was ready to acknowledge your contribution publicly. Ready. No one had asked if I was ready. But as I glanced at Sophie, I realized the truth had done what my patience never could. It had broken the spell. I appreciate you telling the truth, I said. Dad stepped closer. Erin, you will not continue paying a dime if you plan to hold it over everyone's head. I met his eyes. You're right. Marissa's mouth opened. I reached into my purse, pulled out the folded tuition renewal packet, and held it against my chest. I was going to sign this tonight, I said, after the ceremony, for Chloe's final years here. Chloe's breath hitched. I looked at her, softening. And I still want you to have every chance in the world. Then I turned back to the adults. But from now on, there will be conditions. My father laughed once. Conditions? Yes. I unfolded the packet. Chloe will know the truth. No more stories about Grandpa saving the day. No more pretending Marissa and Alan did this alone. Marissa's eyes flashed. You want credit. I want honesty. I looked at my parents. And Sophie is never again to be treated like a consolation prize in this family. Not in whispers, not in jokes, not with that little smile you all think hides it. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said quietly. I'm refusing to let you teach my daughter that love means sitting silently while people humiliate her. Alan nodded. I agree to the conditions. Marissa stared at him. He kept his voice low. I'm tired, Riss. I'm tired of acting rich and grateful to the wrong people. Chloe wiped her face with the back of her hand. I don't want Aunt Erin to stop helping because everyone lied. My anger softened at once. This isn't your fault. I know, she whispered, but I still want to say thank you. Sophie stepped forward then and slipped her hand into Chloe's. Neither girl looked at the adults. That was the first honest alliance of the night. I signed the renewal the next morning, but I did it in Principal Whitford's office, with Alan present and Marissa absent. The agreement was simple. Tuition went directly to the school. Chloe would be told age-appropriate truth about finances, and if my parents ever used my help as a weapon against Sophie, the arrangement would end. For 3 weeks, my mother sent long messages about forgiveness that somehow contained no apology. My father sent one text, "You've changed." I answered, "I know." Then I blocked him for a while. Marissa didn't speak to me until summer. When she finally called, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I hated that you could do what I couldn't, she said. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, she said, it doesn't. It wasn't a movie apology. It didn't fix everything, but it was the first brick laid in the right direction. 6 months later, Sophie won second place at her public school science fair for a project about water filtration. Chloe came with Alan and brought yellow daisies wrapped in brown paper. My parents weren't invited. After the awards, Chloe found Sophie in the hallway and said, "You were amazing." Sophie grinned. "You actually understood it?" "No," Chloe admitted, "but you sounded like you did." They both laughed so hard they had to lean against the lockers. I stood a few feet away holding Sophie's certificate, watching my daughter take up space without flinching. For years, I thought keeping peace meant staying quiet. That night at Westbridge taught me something better. Sometimes the truth doesn't ruin a family. It reveals which parts were already broken and which parts are still worth saving. And when Sophie reached for my hand on the way to the car, her fingers were warm. If you were in my place, would you have kept paying Chloe's tuition after what my family did to Sophie? If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you want more stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.